bunch of lemmings. When one walks off the cliff, we'll all walk off the cliff with them, okay? And some of you have heard my tares among the wheat thing. I do not believe that Obama is the Antichrist. I believe he's the employee of the month, but I don't think he's the Antichrist, okay? By the way, just for the sake of record, I do not believe he's a Muslim either. I believe that he is what we call a Hyksos. If you've never heard of that, well, let's talk about it later. I believe Obama is a Hyksos, and I believe there's abundant proof of that, okay? You won't hear that in the news, but okay. So when you think, remember that the religious systems of the day mandated their own rituals and traditions as opposed to other schools of thought. In other words, there were various sects of Pharisees. Phariseeism was not monolithic. Judaism is not monolithic, meaning they don't all believe one thing. They all don't look at things the same way. This is the great scam, if you will. And we ought to realize that, because Christianity is certainly not monolithic. We don't all believe the same things. As a matter of fact, when I watch Fox News or CNN and there's a moral issue that's about to be discussed, or some overseas war thing, and they bring on, to represent Christianity, they bring on a Roman Catholic priest. Okay? And I begin to shake in my boots thinking, well, everybody's going to think we believe what the Roman Catholic priests believe? So forth. Well, the same is true with Judaism. They'll deny that, but the truth is there's many differences in Pharisees. Why? Because they just represent religious systems. And so they had different kinds of baptisms. They didn't all immerse the same way. So those of you who raised your hand and went to Israel, you know that you've gone to ruins in which there's at least 3 different kinds of ritual baths that they did. The one that they just went in themselves, okay? The one that they went down one set of stairs and they came up another set of stairs and so forth. And they had the running water ones where they just went, where actually Yochanan was, or John the Baptist was immersing. They had several different kinds of immersions. Some people say, I haven't verified this, but some people say there were 7 different kinds of circumcision in the first century. I know there were 3, okay? I don't know about the 7 part. I think that some people get that because some rabbis teach that there were 7 different kinds of Pharisees in the first century. So the conclusion would be that there were 7 different kinds. I don't think you should take that. I would take that with a grain of salt. I know that there were 3 different kinds. As a matter of fact, I was approached at a camp one time about showing the difference. She took a washing glove. She was a doctor. And she took, you know, the gloves you wear to wash dishes, the real thin things, and she used that as an example. I won't carry it any further than that. And showed me the different kinds of circumcision. Why would that be important? Because that's going to be the background of Paul's comments about circumcision. The fact that they got all these kinds of things of what they do on the outside, but in reality, Paul's trying to teach his own brothers that there's nothing you can do on the outside to be in the kingdom of God. There's nothing you do on the outside. And he does the same kind of thing with uncircumcision. He speaks to his own brother, the Jews, and he says, do not seek to be uncircumcised. And people go, okay? How do you get uncircumcised? Okay? Well, that's what they were actually doing in the first century. Okay? It was sewn back on. Okay? And
really?
Yeah, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Paul says, this is one of those accounts where people think Paul's condemning physical circumcision. What he's saying is, no, if that comes before that, okay, there's the problem, okay? He wasn't condemning physical circumcision. Here's what he says in 1 Corinthians 7. He says, if you are circumcised, excuse me, I'll say it the other way. If you are uncircumcised, do not seek to be circumcised. He's speaking of the circumcision of the Pharisees. Because they were bringing in these Gentile converts in, and they were doing all their methods of circumcision to get them into the kingdom, when that's not how you get into the kingdom. He's not talking about physical circumcision, which is something that comes after you're in the kingdom, okay? And then he turns around and says, if you are circumcised, do not seek to be uncircumcised. What? Okay? What he's saying is, because these guys were participating in events in which were done in the nude. Okay? And Jews were not allowed to participate in the events. And so what were they doing? In order to become part of it, let's put it another way. There were Jews that converted to other religions. Really? Yes. Okay. The same thing happens today. The Coen brothers, two young Coen brothers in New York, converted to Islam. They were some of the most well-known yeshiva students in Brooklyn. And they converted to Islam, and they produced a website on how to kill Jews. Okay? So Jews convert to other religions. Well, if they're circumcised, they couldn't be part of the Gnostic religions of the day. So they get uncircumcised. So here's what Paul's trying to say. There's nothing you Gentiles can do on the outside, meaning the Pharisaic circumcision, to get into the kingdom. And in other words, if you're a non-Jew, you don't become a Jew by getting circumcised. You're still a non-Jew. And if you're a Jew, you don't become a non-Jew by getting it put back on, if you will. That's contextually, clearly what he's saying. That's all over the New Testament. That is historically